Okay, so welcome everybody. You can follow the presentation by hitting that URL using your mobile phone or your notebook. And in my presentation, I'm going to create a fake authentication server for a game. And this presentation is about the challenges I had to face and issues I had to solve in order to overcome this problem and create a server which can fool the application and take the place of the original one. So, but first, what is this all about? I created this server for a game called Minecraft. And what is the main motivation point for doing this? I wanted to make sure that this game will survive the decades, because we could hear about games which were becoming unpopular, and because of this reason the publishers, maintainers, developers ramped down the server, and the players would no longer be able to play online using their favorite games. So I wanted to preserve this game for the eternity by creating this authentication server. So once the Microsoft decides that they want to turn off the servers, then users can come up with their own servers and continue operating the game. But first, what is Minecraft? Why I chose this game? In a nutshell, it's an FPS exploration game. So in a sandbox world where you can do literally everything. So it's almost an infinite world with almost infinite possibilities. You can build, fight, play with your friends on self-hosted servers, and this is a really chaining game. So it can sit in, and it's really awesome. I spent hundreds of hours in it on my own. And it's important that it's written in Java. This will be important later while I'm creating this server for the game. So that's why it's different from other games. And apart from that, in other games, usually the gaming company hosts the servers, so you just connect to these dedicated and officially hosted servers, and you can play on these servers. But in this case, the creators provided the jar file for the server and the client, so you can download the client, you can download the server, and you can maintain your own dedicated server on whatever virtual PC or on a normal hardware you just want. And because of this, you are quite independent from the gaming company and the owners, with the only exception of this authentication server. So, because of this, I wanted to create this authentication server to provide a safe way for maintaining the servers, because there is an option in the servers that it can operate in an offline mode, which means that it's not validating the logged in user sessions, but that's not too safe way for a publicly hosted game server, because anybody can join it in this way. So it will preserve the safety by using this alternative server, but it would still remain publicly accessible in the future. Okay, so first I've done a market research whether there is any mods or alternative servers so far, and it turned out that there is no alternatives for it, though I found alternative launchers, alternative game clients, even server implementations for the game, but no auth servers, which are maintained by the publisher. But I found the complete documentation of the server because the developers encouraged the modders and other developers to create alternative launchers and mods for the game. So it was quite easy to start with it, and it made me like this, so I could start planning how I can change or how I can use this documentation for my needs. And apart from the API documentation, I know the architecture, which looks like this. So here you see that's the client, so that's the game. Here is the player who wants to play on a server. Here's the authentication server, which handles the user sessions and handles the logging ins and outs. And here you can see the game servers, which is this self-hosted server, which stores the word and handles the players, but not their sessions. Okay, so what do we have now? I had an API documentation with all the endpoints, so I knew what I had to implement in my server. I knew the parameters with which I should call these endpoints. I hid the responses, so I could write tests for my server. And it looked like this, so it was a Wikipedia page. And here, yes. So here is the endpoint, and here's the example payload. And this is snapshot from the official documentation. So I thought that this should be a piece of cake, but actually it wasn't, and that's why I'm here. Okay, so first I've decided that I'm going to write this server, and I chose Node.js because all the endpoints were in REST.json, and it was kind of obvious that for a JSON endpoint I should use Node.js because it's really fast, it's new, it's evolving, so it was quite promising. And I plan to use MongoDB as a database backend. This is a NoSQL database system, which is really fast. It's quite new, and I thought that I'm going to try it out, though there's no implementation for it so far. So I use a config file for user sessions and user credentials, but in the future I plan to implement this. And so I started developing, and I had to face the issues one by one. And I'm going to present these issues I had to face during the development. The first issue was that the server's endpoints were hard-coded. So I couldn't just pass in as a parameter that, okay, but use this authentication server instead of the official one. And definitely I couldn't change the code because I found a little piece of codes on the internet on GitHub here and there, but not for the whole launcher. And I didn't want to use an alternative launcher, but the official one. So I couldn't really touch the code. So I had to find other ways to get around these hard-coded endpoints. Apart from that, the server used HTTPS signature, so performing a man-in-the-middle attack against it, as it tries to take place in between the gaming clients and servers and in between the official authentication server, my server. I should somehow break into this connection. And last but not least, a few packets were signed with a private key, and yes, somehow, and it was validated, so somehow I had to create a packet signature, but definitely without the private key. So first, the URL. Actually, this layer of security was pretty easy to overcome, because I just put in a new entry into the host file and it worked quite well. So it redirected all of the traffic towards those API calls into the specified IP addresses, and with good Apache entries I could catch these packets and I could answer to them. So it worked like a charm. Then I had to face the SSL protection, and definitely this was one of the hardest, because first, Java doesn't accept self-signed certificate. So I had to sign it somehow to make Java accept it. But how to sign a certificate that I don't own? And definitely I couldn't use an official certificate authority to sign my forged certificate for this domain, which is owned by a gaming company. So yes, this was quite a problem. But after, I don't know, roughly a month of research and Googling, I found out that I don't have to sign this certificate, but I just have to trust it, which means that I create a self-signed certificate and then I just add it to the trusted keychain of Java. And in this way, Java accepts this self-signed certificate, which matches to the domain I provided, and trusts it and accepts it. So I created a small tool, a Java tool, to automatically go into my server, download the public certificate, and store it into this keychain. And yes, it worked. After successfully communicating with the launcher, there was one issue remained, which is the packet signature. I found that there are a few endpoints which were signed with a signature. You can see it here. So there is a player properties section here, which contains the player's most essential data, which covers the texture of the player name, the cape if the player has one, and it was signed with this signature, and actually the game validated it. So I had to create this signature without the private key. And yes, I took research how Java validates, or how the game validates this signature, and it turned out that the public key for this private key is not downloaded, but it's in the Java archive file here at the end. And now I thought that, okay, I can unzip this Java archive file, so I can replace this public key with my own. So for my own private key, I can create a new public key, and with that public key, Java probably be able to validate my forged signature. So this was my plan, but it wasn't easy at first. So before making this tool, another tool, I wanted to create an easy-to-use solution for players, because it's primarily not for programmers but the players. So I used my previous tool, and I've created a Swiss Army knife tool, which is a bit bigger than that initial script, which can handle the host file patching, which can download the certificates automatically, and this new task too, so it can download a new launcher file, and it can repack it using my own public key, and it should be as easy to use as possible, because I don't want to burden the players with a complicated patching system. First I thought in which language I should implement this. Okay, I had a small script in Java, but I'm more likely a scripts person, so I tried to use a script language. But I wanted to use a language which exists on all of the machines, and as this is a cross-platform game, I had to use something which is cross-platform. So without recompiling the whole source, I can use it on Linux, Mac, or Windows. But the problem with the script languages was that most of the interpreters are not pre-installed on every system. For example, you can find Perl on Linux or Python by default, but not on Windows. But then came the solution that as Minecraft is written in Java, then probably Java is on the computer. So I chose Java to implement this whole tool set, and in this way I could went on. Okay, so now I had to repack the jar files. Which steps were required? First, because I wanted to use the original launcher and the original solution, I had to download the most latest launcher, because they can update it or they can make modifications on it, and I want to provide a way the players that they can update it pretty easily. So I've downloaded it from Amazon. I had to unpack it because it was compressed in SDMA compression, and it was really hard to find an unpacking algorithm for it in Java, but okay, I managed. Then I had to unpack it again because it was packed in a pack format too, which is kind of a Java-specific compressing method. Now I started to be frustrated because it took quite a long time to reach the actual archive. But after that, I could finally touch the Java archive and replace the public key in it. And okay, now, was I ready? Unfortunately, I wasn't, because once I wanted to try out the new launcher, it denied to work, and it turned out that I found an SHA digest as a signature for all of the files in the archive. So though I've changed the public key, I didn't change the signature for the public key. Okay, now I had this tool, so I had to just alter it. So after downloading and repacking the archive, I had to just recalculate this digest and replace it in the manifest file. Okay, so I've created this one and validated the result. And it turned out that it's still not working. The archive is still broken somehow. So I looked around and I noticed something that I didn't notice previously, that there are more signatures here. And these are some kind of binary signatures, probably signed with the private key, and the public key is there, and more digest files were in there. But it took so long that I didn't want to struggle with replacing more and more signatures. So I started thinking that, okay, then how can I overcome this problem easily? So what would happen if I would miss a few files from the archive, for example, the signatures? Probably Java won't miss it. And I'll let you know what happened. My first reaction was this, because it worked like a charm. So Java didn't miss the signature at all. But yes, my second reaction was this, because in this way, what's the point of the signature? So I could really easily change it. Okay, so I repacked this public key, but from this point this was quite easy, because though I found this very same public key in the server's archive, not just the launcher, and in a different library, I could just simply use the same algorithm as I used before, so I could download a new server file, I could repack it, and it didn't cost me that much time after this. So here's my Swiss Army knife at the end. It has a help command in it. It can patch the hosts, it can install the certificates, and it can patch all the required archives, which is the launcher, the server, and an authentication library. And I think it's time for a little demonstration. Okay, so where is my, not this one, yes. Now I accidentally closed it. Okay, anyway. Okay, so I have two servers here. One authentication server, this is the Mjolnir server, and one Minecraft server, which is the game server, and I will be the client who wants to play. The first thing is what is required is to install the authentication server. I've pre-installed it. It was just a few steps, but I wanted to save time by doing this previously. It's just a little bit of configuration, but it's well documented, so everybody can do it. And here it is, the Node.js server. And let's take a look at the users. So it's in the config folder and in the production configuration. So you can see that there is one user, this demo@host.com, and this is a password encrypted in SHA encryption, but it's actually password. So now I'll start this server. And it started. It runs on the 9000 ports, 9000, 9010 and 9020, and the virtual hosts were redirected there using an Apache proxy configuration, which has the certificates on it, and the Node.js doesn't contain any certificates itself. So it started 3 different servers, and yeah, it's listening for us. Now I'm going to first create a new Minecraft server for this. So I've downloaded the sources for this machine too, but I'll use just the patcher here. Patcher is my Swiss Army knife tool. So here's it. It's hard to see, but I'll give it a bit of size. So maybe no. Size. No. Okay, anyway. I hope it's visible. So let me run this. Here are the commands, and I want to create a new server, so I'm going to patch a new server here. And it asks for the version. These are the versions currently available for download, but I will stick to the default, which is the most recent. And it starts downloading, patching, and at the end it will be here. So here you can see that there is a yes, here's a Minecraft server.jar file, and I'll move it in the root and put it somewhere else so it won't distract us. Now it's visible, more visible. Okay. So here is it, our server, and I'm going to start this now. First it tries to start itself and realizes that it's missing its LUA or licensing approval, so I have to accept it by turning a flag to. And now I can start it, finally. The exceptions are completely normal, so it starts preparing the word, and in the meanwhile I can work on my client. So I have the very same patcher here as I used on the server. So first I'm going to get a terminal here. Yes, it's here. And my first task is to patch my host file. So I use this patcher file to patch my host file. And it will ask for my server's address, which is this one. This is the authentication server. And it's patched. And we can validate it by reloading my host file. And at the end, I can see all the 3 servers are there with the given IP address. Okay, the second step is to install the certificates now, because now my machine knows where to find these forged certificates, so I can now download them. So let me install certs. It's quite fast, and it's downloaded and installed. So now the HTTPS connection will work with Java. And now I'm going to create a launcher for me. There are no versions with launcher, so it will just fetch the most recent one and download it and patch it, replacing all the signatures in the manifest files and the public key, of course. So here is it, my launcher. And I'm going to put it in a subfolder so it won't bother us. Okay, the first thing that happened, it tried to authenticate itself, and here we can see the authentication attempt which is performed against my server. So it tried to validate an old session, which is failed because I stopped the server and it forgot all of the states, and a refresh request which also failed. So as all the session validation requests failed, I had to re-authenticate myself. And here are my credentials. So let's use this demo at host.com and with the very secure password. And now the authentication was successful. It used the given server with the given username, and it thinks that I am the demo player now. So I can start playing. Downloads a few libraries, starts the game. And I'm going to log in to this server, which is on this address, and you will see that it will start communicating with the server. The server then asks the authentication server whether this user is valid or not, and once it finds out that it's a completely valid user which is logged in, then it will let me in and I can play on this server. So there was a join request here. Yes, I've earned the achievement too. And here I had a session join request from the client, and the session was validated by the server, and then the server get my profile using my UUID. And here am I in the server, and I can play, and my name is demo player, which I cannot see, but here in the log that it took my name and it took my texture, which is shown here. So yes, and here's my browser. Okay, so any questions? You can find the source code there, and you can find the blog post about this presentation there.